The key word in 23 is bisect. You're going to look for that word. It's just like midpoint. The word bisect and midpoint are kind of the same thing, except for midpoint is with a segment, bisects with an angle. And it says here that the measure of angle JKL is 92. If this is a bisector and this whole entire angle is 92, this bisector is cutting that 92-degree angle in half. So that means each of these little angles are 46 degrees. There's two different ways to do this problem. This is how I would do it. Because if I know what one of the angle measures are, or the big angle measure in this case, I can just cut that in half, and that's what these two guys are, 46 and 46. Because that's what a bisector does. It cuts an angle in half. Then it tells you that the measure of angle MKL, so this angle that has the 46, is 5x plus 1. So not only is this angle 46, but it's also 5x plus 1. They want you to solve for x, so you just have to set them equal to each other. You also could have taken 5x plus 1 plus 5x plus 1, because both of these would be the same, and set that equal to 92. You're going to get the same answer, which is kind of cool. There's multiple ways you can do it, and we'll get the same answer. This way right here, though, the numbers stay a little bit smaller, and I don't know about you, but I like you using smaller numbers. So then you subtract 1, 5x equals 45, and then divide by 5. And you do get x to equal 9, both ways that I kind of talked about. If you would have done 5x plus 1 plus 5x plus 1, you'd have 10x plus 2 equals 92. And you still would get x to equal 9. So there are multiple ways to do this problem. The main thing is making sure you know that a bisect, when you see the word bisect or a bisector, cuts an angle into two equal angles. Any questions on that one? Okay, 25 through 29. I like 25 through 29, naming and figuring out what angles are which. Making sure you know what the different angle pair names really mean. So 25 says, which diagram or diagrams show adjacent angles? So adjacent angles are any two angles that are connected together and they share a side. So A, they're not even connected together, so they're gone. B, these two angles, they're kind of connected, but they don't share a side. They share like a point. So these are not adjacent. These two angles, they are connected together and they share this side right here. So those angles would be adjacent. For D, these two angles are right next to each other. They're connected and they do share a side. So they're adjacent. E, these two aren't even connected together, so they're gone. And then F, these two angles, they are right next to each other. They're connected and they share a side. So you should have had C, D, and F for the adjacent angles. Any angles that are connected and share a side, like right next door neighbors to each other. For B, it wants vertical angles. Vertical angles are those angles that are back to back from each other. They share like a point. They're not right next to each other, but they're kind of like, they're back to back. You can tell when they are, when there's like an X being drawn. So these ones are a big no. These ones right here, they are back to back. You have this X being drawn and they are back to back. So B, and those are actually the only ones. That's adjacent, that's adjacent, that's adjacent. Those aren't connected. 27, which diagram shows complementary angles? Complementary angles are any two angles that add up to 90 degrees. They do not have to be connected. It's any angles that add up to 90. So that's why A, those are complementary. 61 plus 29 is 90 degrees. And then F is being tricky. See that little box right there? If there's a box right there, that means there's a box on the other side as well. So F would also be complementary. That little box is going to be your red flag. And especially because they're right next to each other. We're going to talk about D here in a second, right now, actually. D wants to know supplementary. Supplementary angles are any two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So E in this case is kind of obvious because if you take those two and add them together, you do get 180. On a picture, anytime you have two angles that are adjacent or connected together and they are along a straight line, so like right here in D, these two are connected together and they are along a straight line, they are also considered to be supplementary. So D would be your other set of supplementary angles. And then the last one, linear pair. Linear pair are supplementary angles that are also adjacent. So supplementary angles that are also adjacent, the only thing they have in common is D. They are along a line, they're right next to each other, and they're supplementary. I don't know if you'll have to actually do that, like identify them on your test, but you definitely need to make sure you know what those terms mean because they're not going away, especially supplementary and vertical and adjacent. They're not going away. They pop back up even on Friday after your quiz, after your test. 30 through 35 have you actually apply what you know about those angle pairs, which is what you had to do on your quiz. So for 30, they want you just to solve for x, thank goodness. So these two angles are vertical angles. Vertical angles are equal to each other, so you should have set them equal. 10x plus 1 equals 12x minus 5. Subtract 10x. 1 equals 2x minus 5. Add 5. 6 equals 2x. Divide by 2. X equals 3. And that's all you had to do on that one. Just solve for x. Thank goodness. Don't have to plug it back in. 31, again, just wants you to solve for x. You have two angles that are right next to each other. They're adjacent. They share a side. And they are along a straight line. So these are supplementary, which means that if you were to add them together, it would equal 180 degrees. So we have 6x plus 12 equals 180, because I just added them together. Subtract 12. 6x equals 168. Divide by 6, and you get x equals 28. Any questions there? Last page, last little bit. And they kind of give, these ones we're going to have to plug it back in because it wants me to find the measure of angle H. So for 34, it says G and H are complementary angles. Complementary angles mean that they add up and equal 90 degrees. So we're going to add these together, 9x minus 9, and set it equal to 90. It's a lot of 9s going on. And then to solve, you add 9. So now I have 9x equals 99. Still lots of 9s going on. And then divide by 9, and you get x to equal 11. But it does want you to plug it back in and find the measure of angle H. So you're going to do 3 times 11, which is 33, plus 6, and you find angle H to be 39 degrees. Last one. All right, 35. It says angles 1 and 2 are vertical angles. Because they're vertical angles, that means that they equal each other. And then when it's all said and done, we do have to find the measure of angle 1, so we will have to plug it back in. Yeah. So we're going to set these equal to each other. 5x plus 12 equals 6x minus 11. Subtract 5x. 12 equals x minus 11. Add 11. You get x equal 23. And then we have to plug it back into angle 1. So we're going to do 5 times 23 plus 12. And you find angle 1 to equal 127 degrees. That is everything you need to know. In Google Classroom tomorrow, I'll be posting a couple of other things to maybe look back at in your assignment packet, and I would definitely do that.